Drawbacks. Okay, welcome all our friends to yet another live seminar, webinar, audio webinar, dedicated to service providers of all kinds and everyone around the hosting, data center and SaaS industry. It's a real joy to see familiar faces, familiar names in the room. And if you're new, we're truly grateful for your interest and participation in today's event. Let me remind you, this is a live event and this is a live conversation. So if you're listening on LinkedIn, you raise your hand and I will invite you into the conversation to speak and ask a question live. If you are watching on YouTube, use YouTube chat and I'll take your questions from there. And what else? What did I forget to mention? If you want to take it more privately, then in that case, please send me a message, send to our team a message through our website, SAMexpert.com. Those who watch on YouTube, you'll find the links in the description. Those who listen to us on LinkedIn right now, you can just find us there through the links from the event itself, from this event. And hello again. The topic of today's conversation is the rewards of accurate and trustworthy billing in SPLA. And before we dive into the details, let me tell you a story of how this topic came to life. It's a product of multiple years. My name, for those of you who don't know me, is Alexander Golev. I'm a partner and the head of consulting and services at a company called SAMexpert. I bring over 2 decades, over 20 years of experience managing Microsoft licensing, cloud costs, and compliance. And my journey in the service provider world began about 10 years ago, actually 2014, 2015, with a SPLA audit. And since then, I've defended providers in over 100 such audits and compliance reviews, multiple. And although what we'll talk about today is not about audits, enough about audits, the initial recognition of the problem and the benefits of accurate billing was born from the audit experience. The majority of the audits find non-compliance. So this is the story. That's the goal of the audit, to find and rectify non-compliance. In SPLA, non-compliance means you didn't pay enough for the licenses you and your own clients consumed. Why does this happen? First of all, I must say that we have never seen SPLA non-compliance arising from a provider deliberately underreporting licenses. We have never seen pirate providers. Not a single time. It's always a result of an error due to the lack of configuration quality, knowledge, misunderstanding of the licensing rules, unreliable internal processes, and the lack of visibility and control around the underlying data. When client environments are co-managed by the provider and the end clients, both parties are at risk of making such errors. Now, imagine a classic audit situation when non-compliance is discovered, either during the audit or, much better, at the audit preparation stage. You just received the notice, you're going through the preparation stage. What does that affect? What are the drawbacks? Before we speak about benefits, let's talk about drawbacks. The immediate thought that comes to mind, it should, is that if an error cannot be reasonably rectified, someone has to pay. So on the surface, it seems to be all about direct financial damage to the provider as a result of the audit. But what if it's an error on the end customer's side? Or even more frequently in our experience, what if the mistake is due to miscommunication and weak processes between the provider and the end client? Reliance on declared numbers of licenses. For example, the provider didn't explain the licensing rules to the end client. The provider forgot to account for changes in configuration. We observed and tracked statistics on such situations, and here's what we noted. When told about the audit results, most end clients expressed their frustration that the provider did not inform them in time. Why are you only telling it to us now? Why you didn't tell us before? And since there's a question of financial liability when it's established to be an end client's error, it results in 3 situations, almost evenly split. In the most positive financial scenario, the end client accepts the liability and reimburses the service provider for all the penalties. In the second scenario, which also takes place, the parties go into a lengthy dispute, sometimes months, and an investigation to establish what happened and whose fault it is, and there's sometimes a middle ground resolution. So not necessarily the entire reimbursement takes place, parties blame each other, it gets quite ugly. And the last one, which is the most unpleasant, is the end client just goes into complete denial and blames the provider. You didn't tell us, and well, why not? You know, sometimes they're right. However, most importantly, however this situation resolves, the end-client relationship is tarnished in every case. We saw end clients leaving. We saw end clients staying, but getting unhappy. We have never seen an end client who would just dismiss it and forget it. So here's the second drawback that we learned about: the negative effect on the end client satisfaction and even the loss of clients. We also observed that all the end clients would be willing to collaborate on compliance, mitigate the configuration errors, and pay for the licenses they consumed if they were warned and informed in time. And interestingly, we work worldwide, so our clients are everywhere, not just in the UK and the United States, our main markets. We have dealt with hosting environments in cultures where non-compliance, I'll put it lightly, is not a big deal. So it came as a massive surprise, not just to us, also to the client relationship managers in the providers, that even in such cultures, we didn't find any resistance, zero resistance from the end clients in regards to understanding and trying to do the right thing about accurate licensing payments. Huge surprise. Not a single loss of a client when it was timely and politely and peacefully. So here's the ultimate negative consequence of inaccurate billings. Most providers we engaged with, 90+%, were undercharging for their services. So now let's take these drawbacks and turn them upside down, and you can see what are the apparent rewards of improving your billing practices. The first one is improving the bottom line by eliminating undercharging. And this is the most important benefit because it's not about audits. It's about your business as usual income, your day-to-day operations. The second benefit is improving customer satisfaction by accurate billing, by proactive mitigation of configuration mistakes together with the end client, and overall better care of the client. Those providers who implemented proper tools and processes, they see the increase in customer satisfaction, better negotiation, better upsells, just overall less customer churn. And the final outcome, which, audits still happen, but you may not get audited tomorrow. You may not get audited ever. But then again, accurate billing, full transparency, visibility, and timely management mitigates non-compliance penalty risks. It's obvious. I don't have to prove this point. And since this cannot be achieved without improving the overall maturity of your processes and data quality, the results the results of such improvements will allow you to make better informed decisions. It usually doesn't come immediately, but in time that data accumulates, and it allows you to start thinking about cost optimization, infrastructure optimization, green data center, whatever else is on your list right now, on your mind, or new EU regulations about data center. More accurate data obviously leads to better decision making. Now, let's go into the nitty-gritty of what, how, and when. And let's start with the billing best practices. First of all, your end client bills should align with the SPLA reporting requirements. You don't necessarily have to bill the end clients with the same frequency, same monthly frequency that you report to Microsoft. But the numbers should somehow depend on what you're paying to Microsoft for its licenses. In SPLA, if you don't know, you must report and pay for all the Microsoft licenses consumed in a calendar month by all your end clients, including your internal use. If you made a mistake, you only have 60 days to correct it. So you can't allow it to slip. It's not something that you can rectify a year later. You don't have the luxury of postponing the correction further. If you don't pay for what you must, that becomes your risk and liability after 60 days. So it's in your best interest to measure the most accurate numbers possible and to avoid reliance on declared numbers that you cannot verify technically. However, here's something that may not be on your radar, and let me bring it to your attention. Just measuring the numbers at the end of the calendar month may not be enough. What if someone introduces a configuration mistake mid-month? That happens. For example, and it happens more often than not, unfortunately, a system administrator, for all the good reasons, opens access to an application for all the users in the organization. Only 100 users require access to that application. It could be a financial accounting application. But the total headcount is 3,000. Imagine you measure the numbers accurately at the end of the month and you bill the end client without asking for the 3,000 users, because that's what you have to report to Microsoft. That's how it works. And their account manager, your colleague, calls you on the internal phone, or I don't know, messages you on Teams and says, "Are you kidding me? We can't do that." So what do you do then? You have to report now. You have to pay now. You have this problem. And then it becomes a stress. It's the end of the month, very little window for any decision making. So when we work with our clients on the process improvement, we recommend monitoring any significant changes in numbers on a constant basis. So such errors may be caught and rectified immediately, and you can reduce the stress. If this happens mid-month, fix it now. Fix it mid-month. And if the end client indeed needs 3,000 user licenses, then well, good for you. You've just sold them more licenses. You've just improved your bottom line. Why not? It's a win-win situation. That if they want this 3,000 licenses, if they're happy to pay for it, there you go. But then you don't bill them for 100. And you're not liable to report to Microsoft 3,000 licenses. So that would be your loss. And there are other common billing and licensing errors. And I would start with the reliance on declared numbers. That is one of the probably most frequent problems. Reliance on declared numbers either by the end client or by one of your departments. There may be a department managing certain clients, and instead of providing you accurate data through a tool, they just tell you, we need 400 licenses, we need 300 licenses, we need 64 SQL Server cores this month. These are often, and I would even claim always, underestimated. We have not seen overestimated numbers. They're always underreported. There's always a bit of a understatement there. And that means that you you will underreport. You probably underreport if you rely on such numbers. And consequently, you probably undercharge. Please bear with me, I need to do something here. Apologies for that. And the other one, the other frequent billing error is relying on the accurately planned and implemented initial configuration, and then not accounting for changes. We started seeing that recently when we started dealing with providers that host almost like SaaS solutions, not really, remote desktop solutions with specific applications. An application is sold, for example, for a client with 20 users. Huge, expensive applications, something like a card or an SAP interface. And then during the course of the service, the number of users is increased to 100 because somebody asked the admin or the account manager to increase the number of users to 100. Nobody told that to the sales and billing department. The bills were not corrected, and the client continued to pay for 20 licenses. And again, if you're not monitoring the numbers, if your reporting relies on those declared initial numbers, then you're already underreporting to Microsoft and undercharging the client. So it's a lose-lose situation. And suppose that you're reporting correctly, but there is no link between the reported and billed numbers. So you may be accurately reporting the licenses to Microsoft, but the sales and billing department is still unaware of this, and as a result, you charge less than you should be. That is a direct financial loss on a monthly basis. It's a recurring financial loss that obviously is nothing good for you. Inaccuracies often arise from also misunderstanding the licensing terms, which are, let me put it politely, quite extreme, very complicated. If you account for SPLA, CSP hosting, bring your own license, self-hosting, and all the other scenarios that service providers have to deal with, then, well, you may imagine, it's very complex. Service providers need to know quite a lot about licensing. And common mistakes are like reporting and billing for Microsoft Office and forgetting to bill for remote desktop licenses. That happens. Just recently saw that. Reporting and billing for concurrent or active users, while the official rule, is to pay for every authorized user. So as a result, the numbers reported and paid for to Microsoft are lower than you need. Then also that usually reflects in the billing to the end client. Again, the problem grows every month. That stems from misunderstanding the rule, from not knowing the rule. Sometimes you may be overpaying and overcharging the clients. Also nothing good. I mean, if you're overcharging, that's your income, but it may not necessarily be a good customer satisfaction. It may not necessarily be good for the customer satisfaction if suddenly then they realize, or you realize, that you've been overcharging them. At the most frequent example in this case is reporting and billing for passive SQL Server instances. So how do you improve it? How do you improve this whole thing? Very simple, two things, tools and processes. As for the tools, I'll just repeat what we always say. As for the processes, I hope you'll learn something from today's event. You need specialized tools. At this moment, there are about 5 known tools for SPLA license management. However, out of those 5, only 2 of them are alive. Octopus Cloud and SPLA Manager. Not Flexera, not USU, not, God forbid, ServiceNow. Don't even consider them because they don't have SPLA functionality. They're good, some tools, well, arguably good, some tools, but they have no SPLA functionality and no billing. And speaking of billing, out of the 2 active tools, out of the 2 tools that I just named, as far as I'm informed, only Octopus Cloud has built-in end client billing functionality. The last time I checked, SPLA Manager, still a good tool, didn't have the end client billing functionality, but I checked that about a year ago. So what I would encourage you to do, if you want to choose between the tools, just go to SPLA Manager, ask them whether they have implemented it. I know they've been working on it. So check with them directly. And even if it's not yet implemented and for some reason you decide to buy that tool, the licensing data still can be used for SPLA billing, you just will need to do an extra step. But tools are tools. Let's talk about the processes. Speaking about the processes, of course, you must actively look after the tool. You can't just set it and forget it. It doesn't work this way. You must look after the tool's health. So you need an internal resource or an external resource that will look after the tool. You need to monitor for the changes. You need to monitor for false positives. No tools every tool is prone to false positives and errors. And then you need to, in the current complex environment, you need to manage exceptions like bring your own license or out-of-scope machines and out-of-scope software, incorrectly recognized software, stuff like that. Other processes require improvements too, and most importantly, change management. This is where we see the majority of billing discrepancies, change management. Remember, I just told you about a solution where a client was onboarded with 20 users accessing an application, and then the number was increased to 100 users, but then that change wasn't tracked by the sales department. If you have a tool, it will catch it. If you don't have a tool and still rely on internal reporting, you're in the process of researching a tool, implementing a scripted solution, you may still start with improving your change management process. And improving communications between the technical departments and the data they use, and the sales and billing departments. And making sure that when the tool is in place, those departments actually trust and use the data from the tool. So build numbers align with what's being reported to Microsoft. We see, again, more often than we would like to, that there may be a tool, but the billing is still done the old way. And the bills don't align to what the tool tells. It's not in your interest when that happens. So if you remember what I mentioned a few minutes before, it's also an excellent idea to monitor for sudden configuration changes. And if they result from human error, correct and mitigate them ASAP. That's another process that you need to implement as one of the first processes. One of the questions we are often asked in relation to billing is how should we bill our own clients and what the line items should be in the bill. This is up to you. There's no strict recommendations. There are no strict recommendations, and there are no contractual requirements set by Microsoft in regards to your end client billing. There are contractual requirements for client reporting, for Microsoft reporting, but there are no contractual requirements for how your end client bills should look like, what they should look like. You absolutely may decide to hide the licensing details and bill for itemized services. For example, 20 users accessing SAP application. It's very relatable for SaaS, because in SaaS, when you host a SaaS solution, you bill them for SaaS licenses and whatever is inside there, the Microsoft licenses. It's not their concern. It may even complicate stuff. But when you host infrastructure as a service solution, what we see is that many providers like informing the clients itemized what they bill them for. So again, nobody stops you. You may decide to include every license detail and make it as transparent as possible. Please only remember that purely contractually and legally, SPLA does not allow you to resell the licenses. You are the licensee as a provider. So we recommend making it very clear in the bill that you are billing for the consumed licenses, but you're not reselling the licenses to the end client. And how does it all help strategic decision making, as I promised in the announcement of this event? Well, the benefits of the accuracy and quality of your billing data can extend beyond just compliance and beyond customer satisfaction. It can truly empower you to make more informed and strategic business decisions. You can identify trends from the accurate data, accurate trends, not guessed, not estimated, accurate trends in how your clients are using licenses. And it could tell you precisely, without guessing, which services are growing in demand, allowing you to proactively scale your infrastructure to ensure optimal performance and service delivery. If certain services and licenses are getting less popular, it may lead to a conversation about why it's happening. Do you need to improve your products, or is it just a general market trend? Just general loss of interest of end clients in hosted exchange, for example. Then again, maybe it's not a general loss of interest. Maybe it's something you are not doing right. You get the accurate data. It helps you analyze it and helps you make an informed decision. You might discover that certain clients or services are more profitable than others, obviously. And that will guide your marketing and sales efforts. On the flip side, though, identifying areas of low profitability could prompt you to reassess, reevaluate your pricing, or explore cost-saving measures. And finally, accurate billing data can serve as a powerful tool for measuring the impact of your strategic initiatives. So let's say you implement a cost optimization program and you start tracking changes in your accurate billing data compared to the associated costs, and then you can quantify the financial benefits and see whether you're winning or losing. So here comes the time to ask any questions you may have. Not necessarily, by the way, about today's subject, anything you may want to ask about Microsoft licensing. Whilst you are thinking about asking your questions, I want to remind you firstly that if you want to discuss your questions in a private setting, not in a public environment of a webinar or a YouTube Live, please send us a message or book a call by going on our website, SAMexpert.com, or message me or my colleagues on LinkedIn. As for these events, we hold live events almost every Wednesday, with a few exceptions due to holidays and travel. So we'll be very glad to see you again, and we'll be very grateful if you share these with your friends and colleagues. And those who are watching us on YouTube right now, I would greatly appreciate if you click like, if you really like this event, if you enjoyed what you just learned. And I hope you learned something today. And as always, come back, ask questions, and I hope I'll see you on our next live event. And on this note, have a great rest of the day, great rest of the week and the weekend. And, well, we'll see you soon. Goodbye.